Hi, my name is Grace Shalom Hopkins and welcome to another episode of Spin Weekly. Today we are working with some dye candy fiber that was sent to me, super surprise, all the way from the UK, so stay tuned. Alright, this is going to be split into kind of a 3-part series because it turned out to be super fun, and everything I do is super fun. Super fun in the time-consuming kind of way. So also I did a major boo-boo and took the time to film a tutorial video on how to fix that major boo-boo. So it's gonna be 3 parts instead of 2 because I want to have a whole video dedicated to that boo-boo repair. So that one will come out next, and then the finished up video. So basically, now that you're all confused and I'm being a little cryptic, I got several things in the mail, and some of it I sent to my Patreon patrons because there was too much for me to spin at once and I wanted to spread the love. And 2 things I kept for myself, a bat and a roving. So the bat is huge, and that's what you're going to see in this video. I take it apart and I spin it in its taken apart form. If you are a Patreon patron, you'll get the voiceover of the video where I describe what I'm doing, but it's pretty straightforward as far as the gist, so those of you who don't get the voiceover will be able to see what I did. It's not highly technical. I took it apart. As far as why I took it apart, that you could catch in the voiceover, other than because I want to and I'm the boss of my colorways. So, and next video I will show you how I took the roving apart and spun it as well, and the big boo-boo. So as far as introduction goes, I didn't really have any inspiration other than the fiber itself. I just worked with the fiber. I actually started with the roving, even though you'll see that second because of the boo-boo. That is where all of these creative decisions came from in the first place. So you'll have to wait until the next video to see that, but it's like a speckle dyed combed top in very pastel-y colors. So I took it apart, and then once I had spun that, I was looking at the bat and I felt like I needed to take it apart as well. So yeah, this bat was glorious. So much thanks to Dye Candy. If you follow me on Instagram, you've been seeing me shout her out constantly as I do this pin because it's so pretty. Yeah, so I think that's all you need to know in the beginning, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so here we have this massive bat. Do you see this thing? That is huge. So I split it into it's not as wide, it's just really long. So I ended up having to process it in 4 parts. So as far as the processing goes, I began to separate it into colors. So at first I wasn't sure exactly what colors I was gonna get, how I was gonna divide this. And I generally don't. I just pick out the most obvious on top fiber. At this point it was the orange. And then from there, I look and see which fibers clearly were laid together. So like right there, I put those pink neps and the purple fire star and the green, I think it's bamboo. It might be silk, maybe milk protein. I don't think it was actual silk, maybe, I don't know. I put those together first, but then I moved them apart, and pretty quickly I decided that there was some pretty obvious sections, like the purple bits just kind of wanted to be together, and the blue and the green wanted to be together, and then I just let the pink neps do whatever it is they wanted to do. So also the blue noil mostly stuck with the blue and green section, but some of it ended up in other places. So yeah, I pretty much just pulled it apart layer by layer, and you can see you have to be careful with this. This took me Well, this clip is 3 times sped up. So it took me 2 afternoons to go across this. Not whole afternoons, but 2 sessions. In the orange pile, the orange was pretty minimal. There wasn't that much of it there. There was also some hot pink wool of some kind, and I ended up putting that with the orange. I thought about putting that burgundy wool, but it was so tightly wound to the purple that I decided it wanted to be a purple. So my advice to you is just follow your fibers guide and don't get too crazy. Like if you see one hair of a different color in your pile, don't sweat it. This is not that technique, you know. Also, it helps to flip the bat around and look at it upside down, change the direction that you're standing. Don't just work in one specific spot or in layers. So you don't want to be like, now my bat is all in the same elevation all the way across. That's gonna be a super big pain. You want to just let the fibers speak to you, and if you're stuck and you're like, I can't get anything else out without completely destroying this, go ahead and try a new spot. Flip it over. The edges also, don't try to pull things from like top to bottom, like horizontally speaking, because the edges are always a mess. Also, where the other edges, the middle edges. So before I was talking about the ends, like the hairy ends where you break the bat apart on the drum carder. My terminology here needs work. Those are crazy. They're all mixed together. It's going to be really hard to start there. But the edges, I guess, can get folded up kind of, and they can be a good place to find an opening. So other times you're going to get a huge layer and it's all going to pull off in one big sheet, and then you can kind of take that apart too. So just go with the flow. All of this is to say go with the flow. There is quite a lot of this. I left a bunch of this footage because I thought it was really visually appealing and informative, but there's not much that I can say about it as far as commentary. So I'm probably going to turn on some music soon because I can tell we still have one whole clip more of this, but I might continue talking. Who knows what the future will hold. So yeah, I ended up going ahead and putting it into 3 piles, and when you're doing this, you can choose to put it into whatever kind of piles you want. I've done it with all of the sparkles in one pile, and all of the wools in one pile, and all of the shiny bits in another pile. Pretty much you can choose whatever method of separation you'd like. My only real advice with that is try to take apart the bat first and see what things come apart. So if you notice at the beginning, I just put individual types of fiber with itself in a little pile. And then from there, I quickly developed a philosophy of what I wanted to do with it. So if you start out and you're like, I am gonna pick out all of the fire star and leave everything else, great, that seems like a good idea, but you do need to make sure that the fire star is pick-outable. If they, add-ins especially, if they didn't put it in a large enough clump, you are ending up picking out like individual hairs, and that would be frustrating and not fun. Especially if you were hoping to get individual colors from that, then you're picking out like every 5th individual hair, and that, just don't do that to yourself. So what are some other ideas of things that you could separate out? You could do the add-ins by color. You could do by texture. If you're going by texture, again, I recommend leaving the Noil and the Neps as free cards because they're super hard to pick out. You could also do weight if you wanted to. that would be interesting, especially if you had a cell phone camera handy. You could just look at your individual piles and sort them out by weight. I feel like if you were gonna do that, you would have to keep them in their individual piles and then redistribute them by weight, like, you know, looking through the black and white filter on like Instagram or whatever. So that way you could do that. I wouldn't try and do that on the fly. I guess you could take a black and white picture of the Batt first, and see where everything lies. That's also possible. Okay, so here you can see I have my piles, and I went ahead and I ran them through the drum carder. Again, you can go ahead and do this in any variety of ways. You could put it on the blending board or the hand cards or whatever. You can see how I'm kind of teasing the fibers apart by pulling them. That's a good way to keep them pretty aligned. I wasn't super concerned about getting this flat because it is an art bat, but I didn't want it to get all, you know, tangled up in giant lumps on my carder and just be a pain in the bum. So I also didn't want it to get too blended. My goal was not to create a semi-solid, though you could have put this through the blending board. Clearly that is a blending board. You could have put this through the drum carder a couple of times to get a more homogeneous blend. A good way to do that, if you wanted that, is to card all of the bats once and then break them into pieces and card those together so you're even more mixed. And when you break it apart with your hands that initial time, the thinner the layers, the more the colors are going to mix together. So you could do that if you wanted to, but I didn't want to do that. So I just blended it enough to get a mostly smooth run into my carder, so everything was laying the correct direction. Also, I still can't find the thing I used to get those bats off of my drum carder. So that is a paintbrush with the head that has broken off. So ignore that. But I think that made a really beautiful bat. All of these are super beautiful. I did end up having the most of the blue, and then the purple, and then that pink that you just saw. So that was the only bat of the pink. So what I did was I did 3, 2, 1, 3 blues, 2 purples, and 1 pink, because that ended up being 100 grams roughly. It was actually a little more than 100 grams, but I anticipated spinning this more art yarny, so it would be at a heavier weight than the comb top that I'd spun before. So that's another thing to take into consideration. If one of your plies is significantly bulkier, you're going to want to add a little bit of extra ounces to make up for that little bulkiness. I also did something that I don't recommend you do, that you can see me sorting out here. the longer pieces, the Fire Star and the green specifically, I ended up folding them when I put them down, and I don't know why I did this. But that would be a good example of something that is going to wrap around the teeth of your drum carder and cause you problems, as you can probably watch it happening to me now. So I'm trying to kind of switch between painting it on and working with that and blah blah blah. Don't do that. Yeah, I think I've told you everything I need to tell you about this prep process. So I will meet you on the other side, and we will do a spin. Alright, so in this video I decided to go with the real-time spinning. I didn't speed these clips up at all because I wanted to show you a different perspective on how I spin. So even in this voiceover, I'm probably going to add some music more than usual because I really want you to see what I'm doing in the real time. Also, don't you love those finger paint like tattoos the bean gave me? Super classy. I ended up spinning these straight from the edge of the roll, kind of like a giant short roll lag, purely because there was a lot of sparkle in some of these. And especially the purple. The purple had so much sparkle in there, dude. So much. Because of that, spinning it in a roll kind of helps keep that off of the floor and yourself. Yeah, not a whole lot, but enough to be noticeable. And I feel like it doesn't leave as much chance for the flyaway bits to get airborne. So I'm doing a basic pinch pull here. I'm trying to keep it fairly thin, but I'm letting the fiber dictate what's going on. I do end up doing a combination of pulling back and pinching forward, but the majority of this spin is a pretty consistent pinching forward kind of a draft. I also consistently struggle with how to do neps, as noted before, so a lot of those fell out or whatever. I try to trap them in between the fibers, and if I had more patience, you could have done that with each and every one, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So here's kind of the speed that I treadle at. I'm working really hard to treadle more slowly than my feet necessarily want. I tend to want to thunder through my treadling, even if that's not what my actual spinning requires. So my solution to that in the past has been to modify my ratio and tension to kind of negate the over treadling that I was doing, but I'm gonna try just to, not over treadle in the first place. So I'm working really hard on that. So anyway, I'm going to let you watch this and meet you back on probably the other side, because the next part of this spin will happen later when we discuss the fiasco that I did with the comb top. And then in the third video in the series, we will actually ply this sucker. But right now, as I am recording this voiceover, I still have about 3/4 of a bobbin left to re-spin. So, anyhow, yeah. Okay, so now that we've spun this Batt, I think it's so gorgeous. You got to see me fight with the nips, and if you listen to the voiceover, you got to hear me complain about fighting with the nips. Nicole Frost actually has a mini tutorial that I'll see if I can find on how she works with nips. I don't know if it was in her stories or on her feed. It might be gone. Clearly, I did not watch, or else maybe I would not be complaining now. But I looked at it and I thought, those things are a pain in the bum. I don't need to watch that video. Because that's logic, because the video was like how to, make these not be a pain in the bum, and, yeah. So if I found that link, it's down below. If I didn't, well, I guess we're all just stuck fighting with nips. If you have ideas on how to spin nips politely, you can leave them in the comments. Maybe that's the question for the day is, are nips a pain in the bum, or are they cool and also not that much a pain in the bum? I mean, they're cool, but also pains in the bums. Maybe. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. So, as per usual, if you liked this video, hit the like button. If you want to stick around for these kind of shenanigans, hit the subscribe button, especially because the other 2 parts of the spin are coming up and you wouldn't want to miss them. Also, this video is brought to you by the holy trio of Patreon patrons, people who buy books from me in my store, which you can find links down below. I've written 4 of them, and I just put the bundle for all 4 print books. You can get them together. Each copy is $5 off, so that's what, like $10? No. 5, 10, 15, $20 off total if you buy them in a bundle. So that's pretty cool. And then also people who buy spinning wheels from me, which you can also find that links down below. I'm a Spinolution dealer. I use Spinolution wheels. The one I used in this video is a Queen Bee. So, yep, that's how these videos are possible. I appreciate you guys when you help me make videos, and I appreciate you guys when you give me feedback, and I appreciate you guys when you view, and just all the appreciation, and I will see you next time, so bye!